Hey, everybody, and welcome to the newest episode of Stark Flavor Stories. And I have with me, genuinely one of my favorite people on the planet, Miss Georgia Paxos, who is, I guess I should say Mrs. Georgia Paxos, right? Did I get that?
Yes.
Mrs. Georgia Paxos. Sorry, I messed up. Georgia is the executive director at the Canton Palace Theatre in Downtown Canton. Georgia, how are you?
Hi, Mike. I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. So,
Good.
Georgia, if for whatever reason you live under a rock or not familiar with the palace, it is one of the most iconic places that we have, probably not just in Canton, but Stark County, right? Is that
Yeah.
safe to?
I'm partial for sure, but yes.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I cannot.
It's such a beautiful building with
It
so much
is.
history in that building.
I cannot even imagine what downtown Canton would be like if the palace wasn't there. Like, I just feel like it just wouldn't. I guess you just wouldn't know, but I guess it just wouldn't.
Right. But to think when the palace was built in 1926, there were 7 other theaters in the downtown area.
That blows my mind, by the way.
Mine too. When I started learning a little bit more about the history, when I started at the palace, I was fascinated that there were that many theaters, that they were as busy as they were, and that the public supported that many theaters.
Right.
Confined space.
I think about how big even the palace is inside. So I'm picturing, I'm sure there were different sized ones and things, but
yes,
if there were 6 or 7 of those, that blows my. I don't know if I knew that. So that might be a tidbit you've already taught me today.
Yeah, and it kind of plays into just kind of how Canton is equidistant from Chicago to New York. Yeah. So performers leaving New York going to Chicago would often make a pit stop in Canton and vice versa. Okay. And so we had the frequency of events and performers coming through, and then it was vaudeville theater. So it was just a variety of performers on stage at all these different theaters. And it's amazing that there were that many theaters, like I said, but that the fact that the palace is the only one to remain, right. A testament to people's love of that building, but just the arts and theater in general. So I'm very thankful to the JCs and Canton City government at that time, and local supporters that
if people don't know the JCs, the Canton JCs are no more, but the North Canton JCs are still a thing, and I'm a member there. It's a civic oriented young professional group, but people do not realize that they actually saved the palace. What was it, in the 70s? Is that pretty
late 70s, early 80s?
But they were very instrumental in doing that.
Oh, absolutely. They were actually the first members of the Canton Palace Theatre Association, because when they opened it, they reopened it as a nonprofit membership-based organization. So those JCs were our first members of the association.
I always love talking to you about this because I'm just fascinated by the history of the theater and the fact that we're still so lucky to be able to go to it. And you just walk in and there's this peaceful feeling, I guess, that kind of overcomes you because it's gorgeous on the inside.
Yeah, it takes you back to what it was like in 1926 when it first opened, because pretty much everything is historically accurate. But it is 2021, so there's Wi-Fi and there's a bar and there's concessions.
We made it.
Yes, there's these like modern amenities built into the building, but the atmosphere itself is pretty much the same.
Yeah. Well, let's start before we get into the challenges that you went through. Let's just start with you, because we want people to kind of get to know the face behind the palace. So can you tell people a little bit about how long you've been at the palace and kind of what your role is there, and how, you can get into a little bit more tidbits of the palace if you want, it's your forum, but kind of how things have gone since you've been there.
I am just one of the faces at the palace. I've been there. It'll be 14 years this July that I've been executive director, but I have an amazing staff. Chris Lesho is our technical director. Laura Strader's our membership and marketing coordinator. Kelly Lesho is our box office assistant and event staff, our technical crew, Adam and Anthony. And then I have a 16-member board of directors and almost 200 volunteers at the palace, that we are one big team. And for sure, this year has brought us even closer, even though not physically closer, but right, just in our desire and our drive to make sure that the palace made it through this crazy COVID times. Yeah. So like I said, I've been there almost 14 years. We do, pre-COVID, about 250, 260 events a year,
Okay.
both public and private. We bring in almost 85,000 attendees into downtown Canton each year. So we're always busy, and it's been steadily improving year after year after year.
Yeah.
So having gone through what we've just gone through this year was definitely very sobering and just very odd for all of us. We just, it was just crazy. But the Palace, as we talked about earlier, was built in 1926. It was privately owned until 1976, and then it closed for 4 years and then reopened. I am the 5th executive director of the Palace since it reopened in 1980. And just kind of our driving force, not just mine, but our staff as well, is making sure that we provide diverse entertainment options to the community. So we do live events, we do movies. We're a fully rentable facility, so anybody in the area can rent the Palace and put on a fundraising concert or a private movie for employees or friends, or in friends and family. So we just do a lot of different things. We do weddings, we do wedding ceremonies, wedding receptions, multi-purpose facility in a historic setting that really brings you back, like I said, to 1926 when the theater first opened.
And one thing that I think is fascinating, and I learned this from, we came in a couple years back when I was helping, actually my partner at Stark Flavor, John, with his 5 Course 5 Arrows meeting he did. We came in and did an interview with you. We did a second one with Jay Spencer. And
yes,
I was fascinated by the story of the organ that you guys have and how special that is. So I feel like we wouldn't do justice if we did not talk about how iconic Jay is here in the community and his role. So tell that story about that organ, because it's actually pretty fantastic. It's like the last remaining.
We're the only theater in the country to have its original Kilgan organ and still play it
In the entire country. And the Palace has been around almost 100 years. And
yes. We'll celebrate our 95th anniversary in November.
That was fascinating to me.
It's an amazing instrument. It's gone through a lot of work throughout the years, obviously for 95 years. But Jay Spencer is our resident organist, and he is an amazing human, so talented. He does original scores to silent films, to shorts, to feature films. So we use that organ a lot. Yeah. It's our pre-movie entertainment, special events. He'll play sometimes before some of the dance recitals that happen at the Palace. When we had our first local live concert, we did a tribute to Prince as the finale, and Jay played Purple Rain on the organ, and it was just amazing. So he is an incredible person. He is a longtime volunteer at the Palace, and we couldn't do what we do without Jay and his multi-talented person that he is.
So before we get into the story what people are tuning in for, I do have one more question, and let's just pretend like it's you and me, right? What happens on Zoom? So your secret is safe with me. Nobody else.
Okay.
Are the rumors true? Is it haunted?
The mark of a great theater is a patron that never left. I am happy that we have some dedicated patrons that want to hang out. They do their thing, I do my thing, and we happily coexist. We, in the past, have offered investigations of the Palace, and there's some of that footage on YouTube and on our YouTube page. If anybody's interested, once restrictions are lifted, we'll go back to doing those investigations.
And you, for a while, we're on some First Fridays, you were doing ghost tours, right? Is that?
Yes. It's typically once a month on First Friday. They usually run from 10:30 to 2:30, 10:30 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. Concession stand is open with coffee to get you through.
Need it to be open that
late nights, but
where I am functioning at 2:30 in the morning. So.
Right. But like I said, it's a mark of a great theater. So we're happy that we can claim that.
Well, let's get into speaking of a great theater and the fact that the great theater is still here and hopefully going to stay here. Yes. It's been a challenging year for you.
Absolutely. It's been over a year now. And I was talking with another group, and I was playing back that week that everything started kind of happening. We had just had a board meeting that Tuesday, I believe it was March 10th, where we had talked about, okay, well, how do we think this is going to play out? I'm going to get some gloves and make sure we have extra sanitizer for our volunteers and the staff. These are all the events we have coming up. And then that Wednesday morning, I got a call from the Canton City Health Department that asked me to start rescheduling all of our events through April 14th at that time. And it didn't fully register. And so I said, just the sold out ones. And they said, no, everything. So it was like, oh, this just got really, really real. Yeah. And I came into the office, and then we started just kind of talking. And then I started making all the phone calls to our renters and promoters, and then looking ahead, okay, this is what we have available after April 14th. And in the meantime, that week was we do an educational outreach program every year called Start to Strike, where we go into a school that doesn't necessarily have their own theater program or their own facility to present a production. And we have the students work with New Direction Performing Arts Academy, and they write and direct and cast and lay out, and they do everything for their own production. So it was Tech Week, and that performance, they had a student performance Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday were going to be the public performances. And we were working with Canton Country Day School at the time. And so a lot of phone calls with the principal, the head of schools, just to figure out okay, can we do this? Can we not do this? How do we do this? The kids had been working on this project since early October, and it was all coming together. They had, we had the programs all printed, and they had their costumes ready, and they had been doing rehearsal, all week. So we decided to go ahead and do the school only performance for the students that Thursday morning. And that was the last event that we had in the Palace from March 12th to June 25th. So
until April 16th, and then here we are in May of the next year, and we're still
kind of there. But then then that following Monday, we shut down the office. Everybody went to working from home. It was trying to work through all of the things that go with, shutting down a facility like that.
Right. And a facility that your livelihood depends on the facility being open and people coming and events and concerts. I've come to some pretty amazing concerts at the Palace, and it is an amazing venue to see, but all of that is just off the board.
Right. And it was very sobering. It was, the first couple of days, it was like, okay, it's going to be a little break. It'll be fine. We had been so jam-packed busy, for such a long time. It was like, okay, we can breathe. And then it was, oh, okay. So it's not just April 14th. And then it went from April 14th to April 30th. And then it went to, mid-May. And then it was end of May. So it was a lot. It was a lot. But we reopened our office May 18th.
Okay.
And so since then, we're going almost a year now of only one person in the office at a time, box office open with some limited hours, but we had so many shows coming up that we had to have somebody there to help a lot of the calls with rescheduling and refunds and changes and
a plan for
that kind of stuff.
So what the Palace Theatre is a nonprofit, right? It's a 501c3, and that kind of, you mentioned, changed in the late 70s with the JCs, but and you do have some donors, and you have some donor things set up. Most of your survival relies on those events and ticket sales and concessions. So what were some of the creative things that you had to come up with? You have an entire year planned out, and this is what a lot of the stories come up. People had all these plans for the summer, and we're really moving into that busy season of like coming out of winter at that time.
Right.
And all these plans are together. And then, we've been calling it the oh shit moment happens like during that.
Yeah. That's one word for it. Yep.
Pivots on the fly. I know some of them, like we've met and talked about some of them that you were able to do with outside space downtown and things, but what were some of the things that you had to pivot into just to get this far?
So we realized pretty quickly that, okay, this wasn't going to end in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So we, first and foremost, we wanted to make sure that we were staying relevant. Mm-hmm. Everybody's mind, that we were doing something to remind people, hey, don't forget about the Palace. Palace is here. We're a nonprofit. Just like you said, we depend on events and concessions, and none of that's happening right now. So speaking of Jay, we were all kind of on a group chat texting each other, and he said, I can do some silent short films that we can record and we can like Facebook Live them. So it's still some programming.
Content you're getting out there.
Right. We don't need to have an audience. He just needs one person to record it. So Chris Lusho, our tech director, stepped up, and we started doing monthly silent films on First Friday, which in the past we were always doing free family movies on First Friday. So we stayed kind of within that. It was free, but it was on Facebook Live, and Jay would pick different short films, and they were about 20 to 30 minutes long. And he was in the theater playing the organ to these films. So that was kind of our virtual programming that we were working on. And we were pleading for donations at the same time for some operating support. There were a lot of government programs out there that we took advantage of. So that really helped. And then when we could start opening the office, that got a little bit better. But we knew that summer was definitely not going to be the same like it has been. We had always done our summer kids movie series Mondays at 1:00 for $1 for tons and tons of kids every week. We also had our sensory cinema that same evening, Monday evenings, that we would do in the summer. We realized that probably wasn't going to happen. So we started thinking, out of the box and creatively, and came up with a downtown drive-in.
Fantastic idea.
We have our live event parking lot, which is the parking lot right next to the Rankert building that we have used for years now for our live event parking.
And if you're not familiar with that, watching that, the Rankert building is the kind of old brick building turned sideways on Market. It's right across from the new Centennial Plaza, which was the old green space. So you're in that kind of gravel parking lot right next to the Rankert building, which 4th Street, I believe.
I didn't appreciate until the summer that it's kind of like on a pitch.
It is. That's actually where I park during the day with our new space downtown. That's our parking spot. So it's definitely an uphill climb as you're walking back up to Market. You don't realize
it was so great for a movie.
Yeah, it makes sense because you're kind of
almost like, stadium seating for your car. So we partnered with a local company, Funflex, they had all the equipment. We obviously didn't have drive-in equipment.
Right.
The movie distributors were changing some of their rules because a lot of theaters were moving into an outdoor setting. Worked with them, found some really tremendous sponsors. Kempthorne Motors stepped up to the plate and was the title sponsor for the series. And so we did a drive-in movie every Friday and Saturday for 8 weeks last summer. And that was a lot of fun.
It was hard to find fun stuff to do last summer. So you were able to kind of provide that in a very safe atmosphere. Right. And to me, it just fits the whole, you think about, it's hard to find a drive-in movie theater now. And that was such a memory that a lot of people cherish. And to me, it just ties in with the history of the Palace. Like you bringing that back, it was such a good, fit, I guess, if that makes sense.
And it was a lot of fun. There are other drive-ins in our area, but not 10 minutes from home.
Not as cool as yours. Right?
And not as cool as ours. But it was a chance for us to do something like this for the community, provide the programming. But then the other part of it, our volunteers are the lifeblood of our organization. And they had, everything just stopped for them as well. And we have some volunteers that every Friday night, like they're at the palace. This is what they do. And some, one person is kind of the popcorn queen, and that's what she loves doing. And we haven't been able up until then to do any of that. So we put it out to our volunteers, any of them that were comfortable. And we had this opportunity, and we were able to fill the volunteer spots pretty quickly. So it was a little bit of normalcy, kind of, to be able to do that. And we continued with our silent films. We had the drive-in theater. Movie theaters were allowed to reopen. It was early June. I want to say like June 10th-ish. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, we had formed a committee of our board, which was our reopening committee. And that committee met on Zoom and went through kind of all of the things we needed to have in place. Our tech staff bought all the plexiglass, and we did a concession stand with the plexiglass and figured out our process and marked up the spacing 6 feet apart. We recreated our seating chart to allow for the 6 feet physical distancing in the building. And so we kind of had those in place. We hosted our first in-person movie. It was June 25th, about a couple weeks after we were technically allowed to reopen. And we showed Back to the Future because we all agreed we wanted to go back and skip over 2020 completely. Right. And so, I mean, it was, our total capacity is 1488, just shy of 1500. The limited capacity numbers at that time, we were at 225. So there's tons of room in the building to space everybody.
It's easy to space people out. So 50.
And 225, that was our max capacity at the time. And we had about 42 people that came for the first in-person movie.
So you have a whole section to yourself if you were there. You got to stretch out a little bit.
Oh yeah. And for us, we started developing, before everybody got there, how are we going to kind of limit some of the one-on-one contact that we have with customers that are coming in. Right. So we do ticketless ticketing. So you have a confirmation on your phone. Mm-hmm. You the confirmation. Your actual seat is tagged with your name on it, so you know exactly where to sit. But that alleviates the need for ushers to kind of be close to you to get you to your seat. Right. You can pre-order your concessions online and either pick those up on your way in, or we bring it to your seat when you get there. So again, our lobby is beautiful, but it's really tight and small. And so there's no way we can't physically distance people 6 feet apart safely in the lobby. So we did the pre-order concessions, get them to your seat. The rules, since then have relaxed a little bit, kind of like a restaurant. You come in, you sit down. If you're actively eating, you can take your mask off. But once you're done, you have to put that mask back on. So we did that one in-person movie. We said, let's just focus on the drive-ins, did that in the summer. And then the middle of September 2020, we started doing a weekly event, a weekly movie. We weren't able to do Purple Rain in April of 2020. And we always do it right around the death of Prince. So we kicked off our return to indoor events with Purple Rain. And that was a lot of fun. That was a little bit of normalcy. We moved on. We ended up having our Rocky Horror Picture Show on Halloween. We did 2 showings of that.
Iconic, really events I know a lot of people look forward to.
Yes. And so that was another thought process that we had is we're known for some annual events and that people come to expect them and they really love attending them. So how can we do those, but within the restrictions that are in place and within all the safety protocols that we had put in place? And so we did that, and we had our holiday movies. We ran those like we do each year. And so we were doing really well with the movies, September, October, but we all love music at the Palace. And so we were working through the guidelines to figure out how can we do a concert. And we figured that part out. And so we did 4 concerts, one each month, November, December, January, and February. We kicked it off with Hey Monet in November, and that was actually our
local band.
Local bands, but it was actually our 94th anniversary celebration that they kicked off the concert for us. The concert was Saturday. That Thursday before is when the curfew went in place. And some of the additional restrictions.
Is that around when the purple came?
What's that?
Is that around when the purple?
Oh yeah,
came?
That was it. That was right when we were kicking off.
That was 3 days after we launched our pilot coffee crawl and downtown food path.
There you go.
Monday, right. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. It went purple, and that was our kind of oh shit moment, because we were like, oh, we just launched this pilot and we're in purple. So what do you do? That's a conversation, different day. But
at some point you were like, okay, we've been doing all this stuff. Things were looking good. Like, oh, here we go again.
2 steps forward, 3 steps back.
But I have to give a big shout out to the Canton City Health Department, because they're an amazing group of people that
conveniently located for you.
Right. Just they're right there. But they came in and we did a walkthrough of the building to make sure we were hitting all the points that we needed to hit. Yeah. And then right before the Hey Monet concert, I reached out and I said, here's our situation. They knew the seating chart because we had gone over it with them. Do you think we're okay? If you tell us no, we'll stop, we'll reschedule it. But if you tell us we can proceed, we want to proceed. And they told us to go ahead and proceed. They were comfortable with everything that we had in place. We had 7 attendees at that Hey Monet concert.
7, as in like
7.
It was in the band. Is that?
It was one of the best concerts we've ever had at the Palace.
That's amazing. That is
an incredible show. It was a private concert for those 7 people that were there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the night, Dan said to me, I needed this.
Yeah.
This was my first performance that we've done. And I said, Dan, we needed this too. It was such a piece of, okay, this is what we do here. We've been able to do it. We can do it. We will make it. We will figure this out and we will make it. So
it's not about the revenue at that point. It's about so much more, which is good.
No, and
it was probably $72, but
it was right. So I mean, a lot of these events have not been for the revenue this year. It has been to do our part to help the community kind of heal from all the crazy. And provide that programming and that escape from quarantine and all that stuff.
And you did it in a way that was safe. And so, the most important thing is you were able to have these, and no matter how unattended, 7 people or 247 people, or hopefully soon, 15,000, hopefully sooner than later. I mean, I know we're a ways away from that. Nobody slide up in our DMs talking about we're having a 15,000 person event next week. That's not happening.
Yes,
but
correct.
You were able to do things and take those precautions and make sure, yes, we're doing this kids to normalcy, and this is why, but we're doing.
And some of the things that we've done, we feel we're going to keep doing. The pre-order concessions is something that we're going to keep going forward, only because if you're a regular at the Palace, the lobby is really tight.
Yeah.
And so dance school season's coming up for us. A lot of other events coming up this summer. And so we want to be able to keep that to kind of help service the customer a little bit better. So it's like a live and learn type of thing. Kelly Show, I said our event manager and our box office assistant, she manages the pre-orders, and her and the volunteers, they do a great job of making sure they're all ready and making sure people are either getting it on their way in or taking it to their seat. So that's a little extra personalized service you'll get at the Palace.
Yeah. So one more question before I let you go. So we're kind of inching closer, but what's next? Like, so I think everybody feels like the vaccine's out. We're inching closer, and we keep having those small setbacks with numbers and things, but I think we're at the light at the tunnel where you can finally start realistically seeing that planning for the future. So you talked about maybe some old things that are staying, some new things coming. What's next in the immediate future for yourself, your team, and the Palace?
Palace-wise, we're in the middle of dance school season, and we're happy to have them all back. Last year, a lot of them did not get to do their final performances, so we're happy to have them back within, the restrictions that we currently have in place. We're keeping our fingers crossed that our capacity levels can go up. We're at 25%. Would love to get to 50. Would love to get to 100% by July 28th, which is the Chicago concert at the Palace. That was originally scheduled for last August. So we're a year later here in July.
My parents had tickets for that, actually, and they were very
excited.
There you
go. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed that that's going to get to 100%. But down the road, our calendar is filling up for fall of 2021. And so I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to get those shows done, and we'll be able to get back to doing the variety of shows that we have been doing in the past. The staff, knock on wood, has maintained their health. And so we're all there, and we'll all be back, and the volunteers are excited to get back. We have a lot of them that are getting vaccinated, that are comfortable coming back. So we'll have opportunities for them to volunteer. But at the end of the day, we're going to work within the restrictions and the guidelines that are put forth. And we're going to do some great shows. So hopefully everybody's comfortable coming back, and we'll have that variety of programming coming up. And we're going to do a mixture of in-person movies this summer, and we're going to do some outdoor movies as well, which we should be announcing fairly soon.
That's awesome. I think it's incredible that you're keeping that, because I think that's going to be one of the things that comes out of this positive, that you found something like that is such a programming piece that you can do. And you guys are so vital to the downtown area. I mean, there are so many amazing locally owned businesses and restaurants and bars or breweries, whatever you're looking for, you're going to find it. And you guys are such an important piece to that puzzle. Mm-hmm. So I think being able to keep that reach throughout downtown is awesome that you're able.
We work with some great promoters, local, regional, and national, that love our space. They love our staff. They love what we have to offer, but we love that they love us. And so when the Palace is busy, all of downtown is busy. And it's a great relationship that we have with everybody in downtown to make that a mutually beneficial arrangement for everybody.
That's great. So my last point, and this is a little personal point, but you and I have known each other a few years, and one of my best friends in life is Max, who is not a person, but your Boston Terrier dog. How is Max doing? I haven't gotten to see him in a year. How's Max?
Maximus is great. I'm going to turn around and see.
I know he was like trying to get on camera before we started, and then he
has assumed his spot in front of the fireplace. So he's great. If anything, I feel like everybody's pets benefited the most.
Oh yeah, they were living their best lives these last
quarantine. At first, it was kind of like he just kept looking around at all of us, like, so the kids are here. Both like
nap time is getting interrupted here.
Yeah, so this is great. But Max does make some appearances at the office every so often. So next time he's in the office, I'll give you a call. You can come.
I will stop down and say hi.
Time with him.
He's my buddy. He's great. So Georgia,
he's awesome.
Thank you so much. I know you've got a lot going on in planning, so I appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day and joining us and telling your story, because I think it's very important to get that story out there, and I hope people enjoyed it. So thank you so much. I
appreciate it. Thanks, Mike, and thanks everybody. Visit our website, cantonpalacetheatre.org, to see what we got coming up.
That sounds great. And guys, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Stark Flavor Stories. Thanks.
See ya.